scholars, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. Welcome in the class, welcome in this session. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic in political philosophy, political theory, that is state sovereignty. State sovereignty. Under state sovereignty, there is a subtopic that is called, that we can say state sovereignty is under threat. So there is a debate that state sovereignty is under threat. So let us see what threats are posed in this modern age to the state sovereignty, how state sovereignty is challenged by various factors at the national and international levels, and we can pose a question that why state sovereignty is threatened, what are the threats, what are the intellectual threats to state sovereignty, what are the political and economic threats, challenges to the state sovereignty, and we will also discuss what is the concept of sovereignty, state sovereignty, individual sovereignty, and various definitions of the concept will also be discussed. And we will also look at the types of sovereignty, various dimensions of sovereignty and aspects. Similarly, we will also look at the controversies linked to the concept of state sovereignty and contradictions which are inherent in this concept. And we will also look at the relevance of state sovereignty in the past and its relevance in the present. One of the essential elements of the state sovereignty is one of the essential elements of the state. It is taken as the essential as one of the essential elements. Jean Baudin, a political philosopher, a French political thinker, he is also considered to be father of the modern theory of sovereignty. He was born in 1530 and died in 1596. So he lived in the 16th century. He authored a book, De la République, De la République in French. In this book, Jean Baudin discusses that sovereignty is the supreme power over citizens and subjects, and this power is unrestrained by law. So you can take it as a definition of sovereignty given by Jean Baudin. I repeat this: the supreme power over citizens and subjects, unrestrained by law. And in according to this concept, sovereignty is perpetual. It does not stop anywhere. And sovereignty is indivisible. It cannot be divided into parts. And sovereignty is inalienable. Inalienable. It cannot be separate from the sovereign, whoever is the sovereign. And if we take this concept of sovereignty, it is identified with royal absolutism. Royal absolutism means that the king, that the monarch has all the powers. The kings, the monarchs, the sovereign are absolutely powerful. They can do whatever they want, whatever they can. There's no restraint on them. There's no power above them. So this concept of sovereignty, which is perpetual, indivisible, inalienable, it is identified with royal absolutism. Hugo Grotius, it is also pronounced as Hugo Grotius. He is well known for his book, The Law of the Nations. Is De Jure Bellis et Pacis. In this book, Hugo Grotius states mentions that states should be subject to the law of the international community. States should be subject to the law of the international community. And in this book, Hugo Grotius gave a similar definition, that power whose acts may not be made void by the acts of any other human will. So this definition by Hugo Grotius is similar to the definition of given by Jean Bodin. Sovereignty is that power whose acts may not be made void by the acts of any other human will. Oppenheim, another philosopher, he says that sovereignty is supreme authority. So when we say sovereignty is supreme authority, it means there is no authority above this authority. It is the highest authority of its kind, an authority which is independent of any other earthly authority. Willoughby, another scholar, he says the supreme will of the state. The sovereignty is the supreme will of the state. Kelson, in Kelson's view, original and only specific meaning of sovereignty is supreme authority. So, supreme authority is the original and only specific meaning of sovereignty. And sovereignty is the ultimate coercive power. Coercive power means the sovereign can coerce the subjects, coerce the citizens, coerce the people living in the state. Uh, Coercion means the sovereign can use force to to implement the laws and to punish the violators of the law. It is called coercion. So, sovereignty is the ultimate coercive power which the state possesses and which other institutions do not. Other institutions do not have the coercive power. This institution of state has the power of coercion. Legally, every state is equal to any other, so it is legally sovereign. Every state is equal to any other state by law, by international law. So when all states are equal to one another, it means there in international law there is legal sovereignty. All states are legally sovereign. But some states have greater influence than others. So here comes the relevance of the power of a state. Power is both hard and soft. Some states have more hard power and less soft power. Some other states have more soft power, less hard power. So, the United States is a big power, superpower. It has great hard power, military power. It can coerce others, but at the same time, it also has some soft power. Even people in the developing world, in Africa, in Asia, who do not like America, many people who hate America, even they want to go to America.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
the attraction of the United States, it is its soft power. Why?
What a dynamic
Because,
example.
yes, yes, it is its soft power, because people think they will become prosperous,
Yeah.
they will live a peaceful life,
Social
they
harmony.
will have a better social life in the United States. So people who do not agree with the foreign
Policy.
policy of the United States, even they want to go to live in America, and many are living. Many people who do not like American foreign policy, they have got the visa, got the immigration, and they are living in the United States. I know many Pakistanis. On the other hand, Switzerland, it is not a big military power. It does not have as much hard power, but it has huge soft power. Why it has soft power? It is a peaceful country. It is a small country. The weather is good. People are law abiding. They respect each other. It is democratic. But what is more important here is the Swiss people, the Swiss nation is well known. It is famous for its diplomatic expertise. They started having international organizations, building up international organizations even before the League of Nations and the United Nations. In the 18th, 19th centuries, they were building up international organizations. And for example, Red Cross, International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, it was established in Geneva, in Switzerland, and its founder, Henry Dunant, was a Swiss citizen. And he gathered some like-minded people, and he talked to them that there should be some rules for waging a war, and the people who are injured in the wars, they should have some rights, and we should take care of them, whether they are our soldiers or civilians, or they belong to the enemy. There should be some rules. So the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC, was basically established to look after the injured people during the wars. And then they brought many nations together. They convened conferences in Geneva and other cities, and then in other countries, and they formed international conventions. Geneva conventions are very famous. Okay, for the rights of the civilians, for the rights of the wounded soldiers, wounded civilians, for the rights of the civilians and uh, wounded in the on the sea, and for the rights of the prisoners. So they are great documents, and they were established after long, long effort, huge efforts made by basically the Genevans, the Swiss people, and with the help of other nations. So these were huge diplomatic efforts. Now, the people all over the world, the global community, has a great regard for Switzerland, for Geneva, because of these diplomatic efforts, because they worked for global peace, global harmony among states and nations, and for the rights of the people all over the world. So this is soft power. So in the third world, in the developing world, in Asian African countries, unfortunately, we often ignore the importance of soft power. We are mainly focused on the hard power, the material power, the power of the finance and economy and the weapons. It is not all. It is not enough. We should also pay attention to the importance and significance of the soft power. And I think Islamabad, Pakistan has taken wonderful steps towards building up that soft power by mediating between the United States and Iran in the recent weeks. And in the past, we have done so. So here we were discussing about the influence of states. Greater states, more powerful states have more influence, but it is not only the proportionate to the power, their hard power. Some small powers, even Qatar. Qatar is very famous for diplomacy. Yes, Doha, its capital Doha. Yes, Doha is very famous. So you look at its size. It's a very small size country, very small territory. It has very small territory, very small population, small economy, but rich. But it has paid attention to the importance of soft power and to diplomacy. And similarly, I think it has Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera also belongs to Qatar. So it also adds to its soft power. Al Jazeera is a good television channel. It covers all the whole globe. So these are the important things related to the sovereignty, but some states have greater influence than others. although they are legally equal, although their sovereignty is legally equal.
May I have a question?
Yes, sure.
So my question is that you have mentioned that hard power consists of military defense, politics, and economy as well. Sir, why economy is considered as hard power? Principle?
Yes, for hard power, you need economic resources, financial resources.
Yes.
To have more weapons, to have more missiles, for example, fighter jets, you need more money.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
if your economy is weak, you cannot have more hard power.
Yes.
So behind the hard power lies the economic power, the financial power.
Okay. On the other hand, sir, if for example the finance is invested on masses, it is called soft power. I think communication or
Yes,
health.
yes. There has to be a balance.
Okay.
There has to be a balance. The state has to have sufficient security, sufficient defense, but the state should also have some finances, some budget for human development,
Develop.
for health, for education, for infrastructure, or these things. So there has to be a balance.
A parallel objective.
Yes, but sometimes if you are caught in rivalry with neighboring states and the security threat, the threat to your security is huge, then you may have to have more and more budget for defense. Okay, so these are the implications, complications, uh, compulsions the governments face in
Thank you,
such
sir, for
scenarios.
understanding my question.
Yes, you are welcome. Yes, most writers on international law believe sovereignty is compatible with the existence of a body of definite regulations. Most writers on international law believe sovereignty is compatible with the existence of a body of definite regulations, which civilized states generally accept. Now, the states can cooperate with each other, staying staying sovereign, they can cooperate with each other. They can sign agreements with each other. They can have international organizations which shape their behavior, but they also facilitate them. Rousseau and others redefine sovereignty in terms of the people rather than a king. When we say sovereignty is indivisible, it means the sovereign is a king. When we say sovereignty is divisible, it can be shared, it can be dispersed. It means there is a more democratic concept of sovereignty. So here, sovereignty relates to people. So Rousseau was a democratic philosopher. Similarly, John Locke was a democratic philosopher. So, in the view of these democratic philosophers, sovereignty in terms of the people, they see sovereignty in terms of the people rather than a king.
Yes, sir. Big example, for example, John Locke states that the social contract is necessary for upbringing a community and prospering a state. So, if we consider firstly social contract between public, then we will make a state sovereign or prosperous. Is it right?
Yes, the social contract, as mentioned by Thomas Hobbes,
Yes.
it leads to dictatorship. But social contract, as explained by John Locke and Rousseau,
Okay.
it leads to democracy.
Okay. Okay.
So there are two different types of social
Contract.
contract theory, because social contract theory is basically based on the concept of uh, the state of the nature,
State of
state of nature.
nature.
It is an imaginary state of nature, where there is no government, there is no law, there is no authority. People live on their own, so they have to protect themselves with their own resources. So the powerful can do anything to the weak. So Thomas Hobbes says it's a war of every man against every man. So to come out of this state of war of every man against every state of nature, they establish a dictator. It is a dictatorial view of the state of nature, the social contract, and it is given by Thomas Hobbes. But John Locke and Rousseau, they strongly disagree with Thomas Hobbes. So, in their view, the state of nature was not that bad. People were peaceful, they were friendly, and they had a good life, but they could not accomplish the collective projects. Okay, they could not build up roads individually. For example, they could not have academies, schools, and colleges and hospitals because there was no government, there was no administration, there was no law. And secondly, they could not attain moral development. And Rousseau says, when I think Rousseau or John Locke, they argue that when people form laws, establish laws, and they abide by those laws, then they develop morally. So when we abide by laws, when yes, when our behavior, our conduct is legal according to law, we attain moral development. We become moral individuals. But if we don't have any laws, we don't abide by them, we cannot develop morally. We cannot make moral progress. So, in order to overcome these problems, the people living in the state of nature, they contracted among themselves. Well, first they became a society, then they became a state, and then they had laws, and to implement those laws, they had an authority which is called the government, and it became a society, a state. So this is the democratic perspective of social contract and the state of nature.
Sir, there is a little example, sorry for interruption. Sir, like I am driving a car, I am a driver, some of my fellow has given the price of fuel, someone is
Actually, when you speak, your voice is not going to the audience who are joining me online. So, if it is possible that you write down your questions,
yes, sir, yes.
and at the end, when we are join on the Google Meet, you put those questions one by one, and I will respond, and we will discuss. So, do you want a paper?
No, no, I have all.
I can give you a paper. So you write down your paper questions down, and then let me complete my slides.
Yes.
Then we will have a question answer session.
Thank
Okay, internal sovereignty. So there are two aspects of sovereignty mentioned in the literature. One is internal sovereignty. Internal sovereignty is considered to be absolute, indivisible. A sovereign government is a fixed authority with a settled population. A sovereign government is a fixed authority with a settled population. Within the territory of the state, monopoly on the use of force. So that authority, that the government, it has monopoly on the use of force. Only the government can illegally use force to coerce others, to coerce the citizens, but within the territory of that state. And there's another, the second dimension of sovereignty, that is external sovereignty. Independence from direct political control by any other state or political authority. External sovereignty refers to independence from direct political control by any other state or political authority. So, this way, sovereignty is an entry ticket into the society of states. When one state is recognized as a sovereign country, so it becomes one of the members of the states around the world. It becomes the members of the international society. Recognition by other states, it is important. If a state is not recognized by other states, that then it does not have international rights. Yes, recognition is important. You know, these days, the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, it is not recognized by other states. Only Russia has recognized it. So it does not have the international rights as such because the other states, the governments, do not recognize it as a legitimate government. So recognition is important. When Pakistan, after its establishment, applied for membership in the United Nations, there was one vote against its membership. It was cast by Afghanistan. Afghanistan was against the Pakistan's membership. So in a way, it was against Afghanistan's recognition of Pakistan. But after 1 month, they withdrew their anti-vote against Pakistan, and they recognized it. So recognition is important. Participating in diplomacy. So when a state is recognized, it can participate in diplomacy. So since the Afghan regime is not recognized, it cannot take part in the proceedings of the United Nations. It cannot participate in international conferences where various governments join, for example. And participating in international organizations subject to limitations. So there are limitations. If a government is not internationally recognized, it has limitations. Self rule. So the concept of self rule is also related to the concept of sovereignty. Every individual is sovereign. In the democratic perspective, democratic philosophy, every individual is autonomous. Every individual is sovereign. And the concept of self rule means that nobody else has the right to rule you. Nobody has the right to rule anybody else. Only you yourself have the right to rule yourself. Okay? This is self rule.
Yes.
But there is a problem. If all the people, every individual rules themselves, all the people rule themselves, there will be chaos.
Yes.
All will be the kings, all people will be the kings. So there will be chaos. There will be no harmony. There will be no order in society. So, in order to address this problem, some laws are made, some rules and regulations are made so that people rule themselves, but at the same times they have order, they have stability in society. That is why the people make governments. People make parliaments for making laws, and they have governments for implementation of those laws. But in the democratic perspective, if a state is truly democratic and the mandate of the people is honored, is respected, and the representatives in the parliament and the assemblies truly represent their constituents and they make laws according to their will of the constituents, and the government applies those laws in letter and spirit, it is actually self rule. It is actually self rule because the laws are being made according to the consent and will of the constituents. So, since the laws are made for them, for their betterment, for their well being, they are abiding by them, they are acting according to those laws, so they are ruling themselves. This is the concept of self rule and democracy. So, self sovereignty. There is a concept of self sovereignty. Individuals have the ultimate authority over themselves, over their own lives, right to make their own choices. Individuals have the right to make their own choices. Everyone can decide how to live, what to do in life, and what not to do. It is their own choice. Live their lives according to their own values. So people can choose their values as they think, as they want, as they like. Electoral sovereignty and constituent sovereignty. These concepts also exist. Electoral sovereignty, constituent sovereignty. When people elect their representatives, they actually exercise their sovereignty. They are deciding who will be the ruler. They are deciding. They are transferring their power to self rule to their representatives. Their representatives will rule on their behalf. So, since they will rule on their behalf, still it is self rule. Still it is self rule because the power the representatives have got through the vote is given by the constituents who are actually sovereign.
What a magical philosophy.
Ah, yes, it is sovereign. Yes, yes, it is democracy and constituent sovereignty. They exercise their constituent sovereignty, indirect share that the voters have. It is the indirect share in sovereignty that the voters have. Legislative sovereignty. It is another concept. The legislative body holds the highest authority, like a parliament. Legislative body is the body that makes the laws. So it is also called parliament. It is also called assembly. In America, it is called Congress. Okay, so in different countries, that it has different names, but basically it is legislative. The assemblies, the parliaments, they are the legislative bodies. They make legislation. They make laws. Parliamentary sovereignty. The ultimate power to make laws lies with the parliament. So parliaments are sovereign.
So,
So if you compare the executive with the parliament, executive is not sovereign. Executive, the president, the prime minister, the ministers, the cabinet, they are not sovereign because they don't make laws.
but they approve laws.
They implement the laws made by the parliament. So sovereignty lies with the parliament, which makes the laws. And the government, the cabinet, the executive, it has to act under those laws. It is confined by those laws which are made by the legislative. So, legislative parliament is sovereign. That is why the term parliamentary sovereignty.
So,
So, decisions of the parliament, decisions of the legislative are supreme. And it is superior to the executive and the judicial branches. Similarly, the Supreme Court, the High Courts, and all other courts, they are bound to act upon the laws made by the legislative. So, legislative has an upper hand vis-a-vis the executive and the judiciary. Super sovereignty. This term is also in vogue. Super sovereignty. The idea that certain entities possess power that exceeds that of nation states. Nation states. They have more power than nation states. They are multinational corporations. They are international organizations. They are very powerful. Multinational corporations, multinational companies, multinational banks, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, NATO. These, organizations, these corporations, they are even more sovereign than the sovereign states because their members are sovereign states. Super sovereignty. Borden, John Austin. John Austin lived from 1790 to 1859. Borden and John Austin, they were primarily concerned with the internal aspects of sovereignty. They were primarily concerned with the internal aspects of sovereignty. Quincy Wright. Quincy Wright wrote a book, Mandates Under the League of Nations. In this book, Quincy Wright says, from the point of view of municipal law, sovereignty is a unity incapable of division or limitation. So, sovereignty cannot be divided, sovereignty cannot be limited from the point of view of municipal law, Quincy Wright says. From the point of view of international law, sovereignty is susceptible to analysis. When you do analysis, you break something into its component parts.
and solution for solution.
Yes, you disassemble something when you analyze something. You look at its different components, how they are integrated, how do they function. So it means it is divisible. If something can be analyzed, it means it is divisible. Its sovereignty can be analyzed, it simply means it is divisible. It can be broken into parts. And from the point of view of international law, sovereignty is susceptible to analysis, it is susceptible to division, it is susceptible to limitation. It can be limited. H.E. Cohen, he wrote a book, Recent Theories of Sovereignty. In this book, Cohen says international law finds room for the concepts of joint sovereignty. International law finds room for the concepts of joint sovereignty, divided sovereignty, and the sovereignty of international corporations. International law finds room for the concepts of joint sovereignty, divided sovereignty. So, sovereignty can be joined. Two states together can form one state. Okay? So, they can join their sovereignty. It will be called joint sovereignty. Divided sovereignty. Sovereignty can be divided. When one country becomes two, what is that? Does it mean? It means the sovereignty has been divided. So, and the sovereignty of international corporations. So, not only states are sovereign, international corporations are also sovereign. So, what kind of sovereignty it is? Is it not divisible? Because in multinational corporations, people from different nations, different countries own that corporation. They have shares.
It is mutually divided sovereignty.
Yes, it means that it's divided. Another question here is, can sovereignty be divided or limited? Absolute, unlimited, and indivisible authority is incompatible with international law. It is not compatible with international law, perhaps with any law. Perhaps it is incompatible with any law. If an authority is absolute, if an authority is unlimited, if an authority is indivisible, it is not compatible with any law, with international law. York Maritain, according to the champions of sovereignty, the sovereign states are by right above the community of nations. So York Maritain says, according to the champions of sovereignty, the sovereign states are by right above the community of nations and possessed of absolute independence with regard to this community. So states have absolute independence. Therefore, no international law binding the states can be consistently conceived. So if we imagine states as absolutely sovereign, then there can be no international law. Absolute sovereignty does not accept any restriction. But if there is law, it restricts your behavior. It restricts. At the national level, laws restrict us. Okay, they put restrictions on our freedoms. Similarly, if there is an international law, it will restrict the behavior of the states, the international actors. So if we take states as absolutely sovereign, there can be no international law. For example, in a country, if the citizen, the people are absolutely free, there can be no law in that country. If there is a law, if there are some laws, there's a set of laws in a country, the people are not absolutely free. They have to enjoy their freedoms within the bounds of the existing laws. They have to consider what laws requires and what laws don't require, don't allow.
They are only restricted to a circle of laws.
Yes, within the confines of laws, people can enjoy their rights and freedoms. has been invoked to justify absolute rule. Sovereignty, the concept of sovereignty has been invoked to justify absolute rule, a major stumbling block to hopes for supranational organization and cooperation. So it is also argued that a major sovereignty is a major stumbling block to hopes for supranational organization or supranational cooperation. In other words, international cooperation. Absolute sovereignty does not allow international cooperation. Some political scientists say the concept of sovereignty is obsolete. Obsolete means it is no more relevant. It is a story of the past. It has no advantage. It is not useful. Some political scientists say the concept of sovereignty is obsolete, even it is dangerous. They say this the concept of sovereignty is dangerous. And they argue that the concept of sovereignty should be discarded altogether. We should leave it. We should get rid of it. Palmer and Perkins, they have written a very good book. Its title is Theories of Introduction to International Relations. Palmer's and Perkins. And in that book, they write either a new interpretation must be evolved, either a new interpretation of sovereignty must be evolved, or the whole concept must be scrapped. It should be thrown into scrap if it is not if it cannot be reinterpreted, if it cannot be evolved. Clyde Eagleton, an American expert on international law. Clyde Eagleton says it is just as foolish to say that sovereignty must be surrendered or eliminated as to say that it must be absolute and unrestrained. Both things are foolish. In Eagleton's way, these both things are foolish. If you say sovereignty must be surrendered or eliminated, it is also foolish. If you say that sovereignty must be absolute and unrestrained, both are foolish. It means there must be some middle way. This They have to be synthesized. One is the thesis, other is the antithesis. Now there's a need to synthesize them. We need to have a synthesis. Palmer and Perkins, they write bilateral or multilateral commitments limit sovereignty. Bilateral or multilateral commitments limit sovereignty. When one country commits to another country on anything, for example, for defense, for trade, so actually it is accepting some limitations on its foreign policy, on its conduct. So it is putting some limitations on its sovereignty. However, states do not lose their status as sovereign states. They sign agreements, they put some limitations on their sovereignty, but at the same time, this remains sovereign. In the European Union, Germany, France, okay, other countries, Spain, Portugal, they are Netherlands, they are part of the European Union. And European Union has its own parliament, European Parliament. It has its own court, European Court of Justice, and it has own commission, European Commission, and it has the European Union also has its foreign minister. But at the same time, the members of the European Union are still sovereign. Also, they have pooled some parts of their sovereignty. Bilateral or multilateral commitments limit sovereignty. However, states do not lose their status as sovereign states. Charles de Gaulle, an outspoken opponent of all efforts to diminish France's sovereignty. So, Charles de Gaulle was ruler of France, was a French ruler. So, he was against decreasing French sovereignty. Sovereign statehood is the incontestable foundation of all French politics. So he believed in the maximum sovereignty of France. He argued for this. Paul Henry Spock one of the great spokesmen for European unity. No, if the countries have to unite, sovereignty does not allow.
Yes.
And the people who argue for unity among the states obviously argue against the concept of sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
So, Paul Henry Spaak, one of the great spokesmen for European unity, says that sovereignty is antediluvian. Antediluvian means it is counter to the interests of mutual cooperation, to the survival and human betterment. Cooperation for the survival and human betterment. 1965 conference. There was a conference in New York in 1965. In that conference, Spock declared, "We must renounce absolute national sovereignty." Renounce, give up. Renounce means give up. We must give up, get rid of national sovereignty. Pooling of sovereignty. Those who advocate world government, actually, they advocate for pooling of sovereignty. Okay? Just like citizens in a state, they have formed a government, and in the shape of government, they have pooled their sovereignty. Okay? Similarly, at the global level, at the world level, if you want to have one world government, it means the countries will have to pool their sovereignty. Then only then they can have a world government. Those who advocate world government or effective federation talk of the pooling of sovereignty and creation of supranational agencies with real powers. Supranational agencies with real powers. Many of the supranational agencies, many of the international organizations, they don't have real powers. You know, Trump has put restrictions on the judges of the International Court of Justice.
We are subordinate to him.
So, what does it mean? The International Court of Justice has an international court, but it is not powerful, really powerful.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Similarly, many of the United Nations resolutions are not implemented. They are violated by India, Israel, and others. So, United Nations is helpless. Why? The United Nations does not have real powers. The real power still lies with the members of the United Nations, which are nation
Those who have
states.
veto power.
Yes, so, yes, particularly the veto powers and all others. Yes, the sovereignty lies with other members as well. So, Palmer and Perkins argue, they question, should the concept be discarded? Should the concept of sovereignty be discarded? Should we get rid of it? See, they say there are contradictions. There are contradictions in the concept of sovereignty. Number one, supreme authority. Some of the philosophers argue that the concept of sovereignty means supreme authority. It is considered as the supreme authority, yet it must be limited under present conditions. It is not supreme. Second, absolute. It is argued that sovereignty is absolute, but yet it must be qualified. There have to be qualifications on it. What a sovereign can do, what a sovereign cannot do. And third, in contradiction in the concept of sovereignty is said it is indivisible, yet it must be divided. You know, there are three pillars of state: the legislative, the executive, the judiciary, and they are all autonomous. They are all autonomous. Though they are not sovereign as the executive and the judiciary, they are not as sovereign as the parliament is, still they exercise some part of sovereignty. Okay, when the president or the prime minister decide to go to war without asking the parliament, actually they are exercising the sovereign authority. So it means some sort of sovereign authority is also exercised by the executive.
Exactly.
So it is not clear whether it is divisible or not. It is not. We cannot say it is indivisible.
Sir, we can analyze that with respect to circumstances, sovereignty changes its nature.
The concept is evolving.
Yes,
Yes, we can say with the passage of time over centuries, the concept, like other concept, has been evolving. Incompatible with international law. The concept of sovereignty is incompatible with international law, yet it must be reconciled with international law. Number five, historically associated with a period of absolutism. The concept of sovereignty historically associated with a period of absolutism, yet is still regarded as an essential characteristic of a nation state in a period of many different patterns of government. Number six, a fairly rigid and inflexible theory. The theory of sovereignty is a fairly rigid and inflexible theory, yet it must be applied to an evolving pattern of interstate relations. Nothing is absolute. In in science, in philosophy, in epistemology, uh, we generally discuss. It is a common understanding among the philosophers that there is nothing absolute.
everything is changing with respect to
Everything is relative.
relative.
Everything is relative. For example, this color is white. You know, for example, this color is
White.
white. Can we say it is absolutely white?
No.
No, it can be whiter.
White.
This tape behind this book, this tape is black. Can we say this is absolutely black?
No.
No, it can be blacker. It can be more black. The white can be more white. The black can be more black. Okay, so it is not absolute. Similarly, if we say some country, country A has developed, has it absolutely developed?
No.
No, it can develop further.
Further. It is not just, it will develop further.
Yes. So even the country which is the most developed right now, it can develop further. But we are just saying that it is more developed in relation to other
Other
countries.
countries.
So its development is relative. So the whiteness and blackness of these colors is relative. So everything in this universe is relative. Nothing is absolute. So when we say we discuss sovereignty, it is also relative. It cannot be absolute. Some are more sovereign, some are less sovereign. Sometimes a country is more sovereign, at some other points in time, it can be less so. Is it indivisible? Is the concept of sovereignty indivisible? Federal systems. In federal systems, sovereignty can be divided between the nation and the states, for example, provinces. Provincial autonomy.
Yes, sir.
Even in Pakistan, provinces have autonomous rights, powers. So they also exercise some sort of sovereignty. A provincial government can take loan from foreign governments. A provincial government can cooperate with foreign governments. The governments of Sindh and Punjab, their chief ministers, they have recently visited China and they have signed agreements with the government of China and with their provincial governments. What is it?
It's
It
a
means that,
cooperation between two provinces.
yes. So it is also called subnational diplomacy, but I think it is also part of exercising sovereignty. So Harold J. Lasky. Lasky is a famous name when sovereignty is discussed. He has contributed a great deal of work on sovereignty. Lasky is a political pluralist. His famous book is The Problem of Sovereignty. It was published in 1916. In this book, Lasky writes, the sovereignty of the state will pass as the divine right of kings has had its day. So he is predicting, Lasky is predicting in this book that a time is coming when there will be no sovereignty in the world. Nothing will be sovereign. Just like there was a time when people believed that the kings have divine right to rule. Now it is not. People do not accept this.
Yes.
In the democratic world, people do not accept that the kings have the divine right to rule. So just like this concept has become a history of the past, divine theory of kings, similarly, a time is coming when the concept of sovereignty will also have been discarded. No more will people will believe in it.
Believe in it. So I think it's due to multipolar world.
There can be, yes, it is. It requires a separate session, I think. What can be the ways and forms which the world can take? Yes, it is basically discussed in the theories of international relations. In the question answer session, we can remind me, remind me. And Lasky wrote another book, Grammar of Politics. In this book, Lasky wrote, it would be of lasting benefit if the whole concept of sovereignty was surrendered. It will be very good. It will be of lasting benefit. It means it will be very good if the whole concept of sovereignty is surrendered. It is discarded. York Maritain is another writer. York Maritain writes, the two concepts of sovereignty and absolutism have been forged together. They were formed together. The two concepts of sovereignty and absolutism. They must be scrapped together. So absolutism belong to kings, monarchs, and dictators. So just like the absolutism is dying its own death with the passage of time, and it is being scrapped. Similarly, Jacques Maritain argues that the concept of sovereignty may also be scrapped along with the concept of absolutism. John Scholt Nolan says, argues sovereignty is an anachronism in the modern world. Anachronism means which does not suit to the present time. It is an old thing. Anachronism is an old thing. So John Scholt Nolan argues that sovereignty is an old thing. It does not fit into the present. It does not suit to the present times and future times. It's suited to the old times only. Carl J. Frederick says sovereignty is symbol of totalitarian government. Totalitarian government is dictatorial government, which has total power. Totalitarian government is a government which has total power. All powers lie with the government. That is called a totalitarian government. Yes. Sorry? Can we wait for 5 minutes? Okay. Yes. Carl J. Frederick argues that sovereignty is symbol of totalitarian government, has implications that are incompatible with democracy. Sovereignty has implications that are incompatible with democracy. E.H. Carr argued likely to become more blurred and distinct. The concept of sovereignty is likely to become more blurred and indistinct. It was never more than a convenient label. It was just like a label. H.E. Cohen says the theory will persist as a term defining power. Palmer and Perkins further write, for the time being, sovereignty is indispensable to the study of international relations. Without the concept of sovereignty, we cannot properly understand and explain international relations. It is very important in the subject of IR. Sovereignty is violated. One country, one powerful country violates the sovereignty of others. You know, so when it is attacked, when missiles are thrown, In many ways, it is violated. Transformation of sovereignty. In some cases, for example, in European Union, sovereignty has been pooled. They pooled their sovereignty, foregoing their supreme authority. Now, France, Germany, Spain, they also have to abide by the laws made by the European Parliament. They have also to see what European Commission wants. So this way, they are under the European Union's authority, but at the same time, they are sovereign, and they have pooled their sovereignty in the form of European Union, transferring sovereignty to a higher regional entity. What they have done, the European countries, they have transferred a part of their sovereignty to a higher regional entity, that is the European Union. This way, they have pooled their sovereignty. Globalization, it also has an impact on the concept of sovereignty. It has compromised sovereignty. Now, international trade, for example, international communications, for example, they have put restrictions on the conduct of the states. Similarly, terrorism, international terrorism, it's another challenge to sovereignty. It is challenging the nation states, their sovereignty, and lack and absence of rule of law. It is leading to lack of rule of law and absence of rule of law because international terrorism. Quasi sovereign. Quasi sovereign. Some of the institutions and organizations are quasi sovereign. US Supreme Court argues that today states are quasi sovereign. They are not completely sovereign.
Partial.
They have some sovereignty. They are quasi. They are like sovereign states. They are not sovereign. Thank you very much. So I joined you on the Google Meet.